Okay, so welcome everyone. So in this session I'm going to be going through Sitecore 7 and the features of Sitecore 7 that are going to be relevant for marketers and content authors. So a lot of other sessions that I've seen, they've been quite developer oriented because there are lots of pieces for the developers in Sitecore 7 in this release. So this session is going to be a bit different. This is for the marketers and the business users. So just to take you through a quick introduction, what can you expect from this webinar? So this is going to be a very quick tour of the new features in Sitecore 7 for business users. So I'll show you the features that are going to impact you the most. We'll go through the new search user interfaces. We'll have a look at how we can, the new content structure strategy, how we can structure content now with Sitecore 7. And I'll also have a look at a couple of the extension points that are going to make day-to-day life easier for business users and content authors. A bit of an introduction to me. My name's Alistair Denise, as Anavan said. I'm the Seamless Practice Head here at eDynamic. I'm also a Sitecore MVP. I've been an MVP since 2008. I'm an architect. I spend most of my time, when not being the Seamless Practice Head, doing architecture for Sitecore projects and helping our teams at eDynamic deliver solutions for our clients. I've contributed to the first official Sitecore book that has been published by John West of Sitecore. I wrote the chapter on automated testing with Sitecore. I'm an active blogger and open source contributor. And there's some credentials that you can find me on Twitter, my personal blog, and I'm always blogging on the eDynamic blog as well. Okay, so let's go have a look at the new features of Sitecore 7. So new features for business users. The kind of, what I like to say, the driving goal, if you like, for this release was to extend the product architecture to allow the next generation of websites to be built. So some of the new features that we're going to be covering today were pretty revolutionary, quite nice, but at the same time there's still a familiarity to the product. There's a couple of new features, but it's not like the whole product has changed or anything like that. So we'll be going through that, and that was the driving force of this release. Was Sitecore wanted to lay down the foundations to allow bigger and better sites to be built. I've often heard when Sitecore are talking about Sitecore 7 and what they were hoping to achieve with it, I've heard people talking about huge volumes of content, Amazon level volumes of content is what they're talking about. So Amazon.com, of course, a very large online retailer. Sitecore wanted to be able to handle that volume of product catalog within the Sitecore infrastructure. So to support this, we've got a couple of new features. The first one is item buckets, or you could also call them content pools. So this is a way to store large amounts of unstructured content. There's also search updates. A lot of this release is about search, and you'll see that as we go through the demos. We've now got an easier mechanism to index common Office document formats such as Word docs, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint, PDF, things like that. And of course there's also some general improvements, as every Sitecore release has. So let's have a look at our first feature, item buckets. So what is an item bucket? It's a bit of a funny term. Basically you can think about item buckets as a pool of content. So item buckets allow us to manage large volumes of unstructured content. And when I say unstructured, I mean they don't need to be placed into a hierarchy. So in a typical Sitecore solution, we have the content tree, and all of the pages and content items within the solution, they need to fit into somewhere within this hierarchy. Okay, item buckets breaks that. You don't require the hierarchy anymore. So you can think about an item bucket as just a pool of content rather than a structured subtree of content. We've got the ability to store millions of items without significant performance degradation. So the Sitecore content tree, because it is hierarchical in nature, it does have some performance limitations when it comes to storing large amounts of content in a single location. And in fact, during my preparation for this webinar, I did go and create 1 million items in the content tree, and Sitecore handled it quite easily. Item buckets abstract away the structure inside them, so we don't need to worry about it. And in fact, it's much easier if we don't think about the structure within an item bucket. Instead, we use search techniques to find the content within the bucket. So ideal uses for a content bucket, for an item bucket, are anything that doesn't always fit into a clean hierarchical structure, such as a product catalog. So a product can belong to many subcategories, many other subcategories, sub-subcategories, but then some of those categories are cross-cutting. So it doesn't necessarily seem to fit into an appropriate home. If I could use a tourism example, you may have hotels, around the world, for example, and you could list them out by country in a hierarchical structure. But another dimension you may want to categorize the products by is the type of destination they are, whether they're family friendly, whether they're budget, whether they're expensive. So that's a separate cross-cutting dimension other than country. So item buckets are quite good for that kind of thing. Anything that is date-based, blog posts and news releases, storing them in a hierarchical structure, you generally always have to have some kind of archive structure underneath that location, such as a year folder, a month folder, possibly a day folder, and then you've got the actual items within that, because they are created in large volumes. These are some pieces of content that they're only going to grow in volume. They're never going to shrink. And with that, let's get into a bit of a demo around item buckets. So I've got my Sitecore solution here. This is Sitecore 7 Update 1 that has just come out earlier this week. I've got some sample sites here that I've got. So the first one we're going to have a look at, my legacy legal site. Let's have a look at our flat articles list. So I'll just expand out this folder. Now that expanded pretty quickly, and the screen is just catching up with some of our viewers. I've got 1,000 test items in here. Now you can imagine if I had 200,000, 500,000, 1 million items in here, expanding that tree would take quite a significant amount of time. And in fact, when I had created my 1 million test items, I started moving them into a single location because I wanted to test the performance lag of trying to open up a single item with 1 million sub-items in it, which completely goes against all of the best practices that Sitecore give us. It wouldn't work. I completely broke my Sitecore installation with that volume of content in a single location. So this level, this kind of structure is never going to scale well. And in fact, trying to scroll through this giant list, looking for that one piece of content that you want to update, it's not very user-friendly either. So in Sitecore 6.6 and before, we employ different folding techniques. So as I mentioned, if you were structuring news items or blog posts, you might structure them by a year, month, day type structure. And that's exactly what I've done here. So you can see I've got my 1,000 items, but now they're segregated out into separate folders. It solves the performance issue. It's a little easier to navigate around, but there's still the volume of content in there probably isn't too bad. But you've got to go down and dig into specific folders to find the content that you're after. So if I know the name of my piece of content, I also need to know about when it was authored to be able to find it within these folders. So this is solving part of the issue, but not everything. So now, if I come down to my new site here, and I have, again, my 1,000 articles, but this time I've put them into an item bucket. Okay, so when I click on my bucket, I get a search interface to search for my content. And if I try and expand out the structure of that bucket, you can see that I get a message there saying that although there are things within my bucket, the structure is hidden because it is a bucket, and that's kind of the purpose of it. Now, looking at some of the chatter on the social networks and what people have been asking about, many people have been excited about the prospect of Sitecore 7 and the fact that they don't have to structure the content anymore. It's not entirely true. You still need to structure your content. You're still going to have some content that is best structured and some which is not. For example, if you have a look at the site structure, all of my industries, all of my practices, they don't necessarily make sense to put into a single bucket along with my articles and my people and just have this big bucket of content. It would be very difficult to manage my site if I didn't have at least some level of structure in there. So whenever you're looking at employing Sitecore buckets, you're probably going to be requiring both the structured content, as you can see here, and the unstructured item buckets. It's about analyzing your content to work out what types are relevant for item buckets. I won't start searching just yet because that takes us into our next demo, so let's go back to the slides. Okay. So the next big feature in Sitecore 7, of course, is search updates, and there's been many search updates. The primary reason we need search or new search UIs is so we can find the content in the buckets. Okay, as I mentioned, and as you saw in the demo, there's no structure that we can see within the bucket. There is actually a structure that's hidden away, and we don't want to worry about the structure. That's the whole purpose of the bucket. So to find the content, we're going to have to use search. However, the search improvements are not limited just to item buckets. You can move to any section within the content tree and open up a new search tab and start searching for content from that point below. So if I had my general site structure, I could be searching for an article or a person or any content type up at the Sitecore, my site root level, and that will be searching all of the descendants. So that gives me capability to search the entire content tree, whether the content is in a bucket or not. The search UI gives us textual search, so I can search by general text, the content of the item or the name or whatever. We can also filter the results down by facets. So faceting is a way to categorize the content of a search result set. So if I execute a search for John, for example, it will give me, Sitecore will give me all of my results that match the text John, but then it will also give me a variety of categories to say, well, did you mean John who is part of these practices, or did you mean John who is part of these industries? To use a product catalog analogy, if I search for, let's say, I don't know, pants, it will find me all the pants, but then it may categorize them by, did you mean jeans, did you mean slacks, did you mean blue, did you mean cuffed? So it's a way to drill down into our results and understand what we have in there, and I'll show you that when we get to the demo. We can also search within specific fields of items. So I could search for an author, for example. I could say, show me all of the content that was authored by a specific user, or show me the content that was created within a specific date range. And I can also, of course, have my own custom fields in there. So one of the strengths of Sitecore is we get to define the structure of our content items, of our page types. We get to define what fields appear on that, and we can search on any of those as well. There is a search builder that helps us create complex queries. So if we know that we want to find some content, we're not entirely sure what search we need to execute, the search builder can help us out there. We can save common search queries and rerun them later. And this is quite handy if you find yourself constantly looking for the same kind of content with the same filters on it. So for example, I'm looking for all of the articles that are bylined articles that were authored by Jessica in 2012, because for whatever reason I need to keep coming back to those and doing something with them. So I can create a saved query and rerun it whenever I need it. On the search results screen, we have quick actions that allow us to perform actions or operations directly on items within the search results list. So this could be quite efficient because I don't have to, after I've found my content, I don't need to navigate down to each individual piece to do this operation. And the operations, they range from, I may need to publish the item, I might want to create a new version of the item, I might want to push it through workflow. There's a variety of things, and we can also extend those. And the search capabilities have also been added to more areas. So because a section of our content tree has now significantly changed, because we've got this unstructured content, if we were, for example, wanting to insert a link to any of the pieces of content within that item bucket, we don't want to be navigating down the structure of the bucket. Instead, we want to be able to search for that content. So just like we do in the content UI, when we're searching for content that we want to edit, we want that same capability when we're looking for content to include in some list or something. Search performance has been increased greatly, indexing and searching. So indexing is the operation where Sitecore inspects a piece of content and works out how it's going to be searched, how it's going to be stored, so then it can be searched using queries efficiently. The thing that takes care of that indexing and searching, it's another piece of software. It's either Lucene, which comes out of the box with Sitecore. Lucene is open source. And another very common one is Solar. So just to give you a bit of an idea about the performance boost in Sitecore 7, these stats came from Sitecore. They came from Tim Ward at Sitecore when he was giving a webinar to the MVPs on Sitecore 7 when it first came out. So you can see here we've got Sitecore 6.6 and we've got Sitecore 7. Indexing 10 million items. Sitecore 6.6 took 27 hours. Okay, quite a considerable amount of time. Sitecore 7 with Lucene took 98 minutes. That's a big improvement. And indexing using Solar took 70 minutes. So you can see we're orders of magnitude faster in just indexing the content. Now, you might think indexing isn't really that relevant because, well, once you create content, that's it. Indexing happens often whenever you change the content. As soon as you change a piece of content, it needs to be re-indexed because the data has changed and the search index needs to know what has changed so it's searchable. In particular, when you're publishing content, you're moving a lot of content to the live database, the web database. All of that content that is being published needs to be re-indexed so that's searchable on the public website. Okay. So that's the indexing part of it. Doing a regular search, just a normal search, in Sitecore 6.6 across that 10 million items took 3.9 seconds. Okay, well, that's not too bad. On some websites that would be considered slow. With Sitecore 7, Lucene and Solar both performed the search in 0.3 of a second. Okay, again, magnitudes faster, order of magnitudes faster. For a complex search, so this was trying to sort by date within the search query, so get the search engine to do that. Sitecore 6.6 did not finish. Sitecore 7, again, 0.3 seconds on both Lucene and Solar. So you can see there significant performance increases in search and indexing. And with that, let's get on to some demo for searching. So I'll come back to my Sitecore solution here. Okay, so let's have a look at searching for people. So I mentioned, these are mock example legal sites. Legal sites tend to have a similar content approach for people. Okay, a lot of law practices, they highlight their people as part of the website. They want to show who they've got, what they do, because ultimately when you come to a law firm, you're coming there because of their experience and their expertise, and that comes from the people they have. So having a look at how we may structure the people on our legacy site without item buckets and without search. Okay, so underneath my people section, I've now created some folders for location. So I've decided that, okay, I've got 3,000 lawyers that I want to display on my website. I can't put them in a flat list because that would just be too unusable for the content authors trying to locate the items to update them. Instead, I'm going to list them out first of all by location. And then in this example, well, I don't actually have 3,000, I've got 4. And so within each location I have my lawyers. Now that's okay from a storage perspective, but what if I didn't want to, as a content author, what if I didn't want to look at the people based on their location? What if I wanted to look at the people based on the practice that they are within, or the industry that they operate within? Okay, using the structure I can't see that. the only dimension that I've got to segment and segregate these people is the location. So trying to search is going to be very difficult. Let's close that down. We'll come down to the new site. Let's have a look at the people here. So this is the, well, same and a few more people, this time in an item bucket. Okay, so let's search for a person. Easiest search query, star, give me everyone. And we perform the search. And here we go, we've got people returned. And we've also got the people folder returned. Okay, I mentioned before facets. So what we see down here on the right-hand side are the facets. Okay, these are the categorizations within the search results. So you can see here I've got the practices taxonomy, the facet. So it's taken my search results. So you can see there we've got 9 search results returned. And it's saying within each of the practices, this is how many we have. So you can see in capital markets we've got 2. In dispute resolution we've got 1. In real estate we've got 1. So I can click on one of these, and that only gives me the items within that search result set that have that particular practice attributed to them. I can apply multiple facets as well. So I might say, okay, in addition to the corporate facet, show me in industries, education, for example. So you can see here I've got my current filters up here, and I've only got one result in this case. So let's remove those filters. We'll get everyone back again. Now I mentioned we have quick actions within the search results. So these little things down at the bottom with the red box against them, these are the quick actions. So this gives me the capability to perform an operation on any of the items that are in this result list. So for example, I might say, okay, Jerry Smith, I'm going to publish him, click publish. Peter Smith, I'm going to publish him, click publish. And again, if I use the facets on the side, there may be a particular operation that I need to perform on a set of items that I'm going to search for. Okay, we can also search based on other criteria. So this is general text search. Okay, let's do something a bit more specific than a general wildcard search. Let's search for John, because I know that we've got a John in there. Okay, there we go, we found John. You know what, we're not interested in John. I want to show everything that was authored by Ed, because I need to have a look at what he's been doing. So I've got this little drop down next to my search box. Once it comes back, and within here I have a search filters section. I can expand that out, and this gives me a number of options that I can filter my result set with. So if I come in here and I can say search by author, click on that, and it puts the little author tag up top of the search box for me. And now I can start typing, and it's got autocomplete to give me possible options that I may be trying to look for. So I know that I'm looking for Sitecore Ed. Now this is the way that Sitecore stores the authors, puts Sitecore at the start of them, because what we're dealing with here is not the name of the author, it's the username of the author. So I can click on that. Let's execute that search. Okay, and we need to combine that with another search, so let's just say wildcard. Okay, so 3 results this time, and I can see all of the content within that bucket that was authored by Ed. Now I've got a couple of other useful things up there in that drop down as well. Recent searches. So in here I can see searches that I've executed recently. So, and this is great when you're in the content and you've been working with it for a little while. It may be likely that you're searching for something and you've tried one set of search criteria, and you almost got there, and then you try something else and it's not, no, that's actually worse, giving you worse results than the previous query. It's very easy to come back to your previous query and just simply click on it, and then that adds that query into my search. Some other options we've got in there. Got a list of recently modified items. These are site-wide, so again, whilst I've been in here and I've been authoring content, I may think, oh, hang on, I want to go back to that thing that I was just editing, so I can use this to quickly find that. I've also got recently created, so much in the same way as recently modified. These are the things that are being created new. Recent tabs. So you'll notice the search sits within a tab at the top there of the content editor field section called search. I can actually open up multiple tabs. So I might say, okay, well these are the items that were authored by Ed. I need to go and search for something else, but I don't want to lose my context. Okay, I can actually come over here and click and open up a brand new search tab. And it looks like the demigods are laughing because it's not opening up a new search tab for me. But trust me, it does work. In addition to being able to open up multiple search tabs, I may, as I click into my search results, so let's say I've searched for these pieces of content that Ed has authored. I need to make an update to Jerry. I can click on Jerry. And you notice Jerry opens up in a new tab here, okay? And it's another, if you like, sub-content editor. It's the content editor, but it's focused on Jerry and it doesn't show the tree. But I can still very easily flip back to my search results simply by clicking on the search tab. And I'm going to say, I need Peter as well. So I can click on that. Peter opens up in his own tab. So again, I don't have to lose my context as I'm moving around. I can very easily come back to any of my pieces of content, come down and do the edit that I require, and jump back off to another content item and then back to my search. So in the drop-down next to the search box, the recent tabs is a list of the tabs that I recently opened up. So for example, if I closed down Peter, and I close down Jerry, I say, hang on, no, I actually still want it Jerry. Let's say that I've done another search in here, so I can't easily see Jerry. Okay, Jerry's at the top. I'll always be able to easily see Jerry, but let's go to John, for example. I can click on here, recent tabs. Oh, sorry, it was Peter. I can very easily open up that tab again. So these are just little tools to help with everyday tasks in Sitecore 7. I've already showed you the search filters. So in the search filters, we've got a number of options that we can filter our results down by. And then we've also got search operations. So search operations are very similar to the quick actions. Okay, but the difference here is these will operate on the whole result set. So let's say I need to send them all for PDF. Now this is a custom operation that I've added in there. So I mentioned the extension points at the start of the webinar. These are some extension points we have for using our day-to-day life. So I can add my own search operations to this list of operations to apply to a set of search results. And in fact, this send for PDF quick action, that's also a custom extension that I've added in there. So we can add any, based on the type of content. So these are people, so any person has the send for PDF. And you'll notice that that's actually different from the search folder itself that's also come back in the search results set. Okay, I've got a different set of quick actions than what I have for a person. So I can set the quick actions based on the content type. Okay. So we can also save search results. So I mentioned earlier, if we have a common set of search criteria that we're constantly entering, we can save it as a saved search. So I can come in here, I've got a saved search right here, the Melbourne office. So I can click on that. Okay, and that pre-populates my search with the required criteria, and you can see here it's brought back the list of people that I have in the Melbourne office, which is 2. And I can create additional saved searches as simply as coming into, or selecting the bucket and adding a new saved search. So let's create one called Boston, and very similar to the Melbourne office, we want this to display all of the people that we have in the Boston office. So you can see that it's pre-populating the query, and then we could say, and my office needs to be Boston, and it doesn't work because the demigods aren't smiling. Anyway, trust me, it works. As you can see here in the Melbourne office, this saved result that I've already got. Now, I also mentioned that the search UIs are not just limited to item buckets. We can use them to search anything within the site. So let's come up to the content node here. So this is the item inside Sitecore that contains all of the content. So this is containing both of my sites. So I can actually search across my entire content tree here. Now I know that I've got an article in here called Lorem, after the famous Lorem Ipsum, but I forgot where I put it. So let's just do a search for Lorem. Okay, there it is, great. So I can click on that and open up my Lorem article, and now I can start working on it. So that was search. Now, I've also mentioned before, because we've now got this new content structuring strategy, we need a way to be able to work with the content within that structure, in particular when we're trying to link to the content. So the traditional field types that we have in Sitecore, they all expose a section of the content tree. You can drill down into that tree and you can select the individual items that you want to appear on your list or whatever you have. The new search fields allow us to use search to find those items. So a couple of, I'm going to show you 3 new field types that we have here. So first off is the multi-list with search. So this allows us to use search terms to narrow down a set of results that are coming out of a section of the content tree. So for example, I could set the source of my field to the person folder, and then as I type into the search box, it's searching within that person bucket. The next one is tree list with search. Now tree list with search is very similar to multi-list with search. The biggest difference is with tree list with search, the user can change the root item that they're searching within. So for example, you might set up the default. The default is the people, but they might say, well, I don't just need people from that site, I need people from the other site. So I can change my root location where I'm searching from. I can change that to, for example, just the Sitecore content item, and then I can start searching below that. And the next most significant one is general link with search. So general link field in Sitecore allows you to insert links to other content items, a single link. But of course we need to be able to search for links with Sitecore 7 because we don't want to drill down into the structure of a content tree, of an item bucket. So it presents a very familiar search panel there within that dialog. We can use that to search for the content that we want to link to. Well, we've also got search incorporated in more areas. So in the insert item dialog box, in the data source dialog box, when we insert links and media within the rich text editor, all of these locations provide us an opportunity to search for the content rather than linking directly to it and drilling down through the hierarchy. So with that, let's have a look at these new search fields in action. Okay, so I've got my item here, new search fields. Okay, so first off, we've got the multi-list with search. So as you can see here, this has already been set up and configured to search within the people folder, and you can see all of these people that are coming back. So first off, we have the item name, then we have the template, the template, then the location, the version, and the language. So let's say I'm looking for Kathy. Okay, I can enter that in there, search kicks in, and there's my Kathy item, my Kathy person. And now I would like to search for Peter. Okay, there we go. Next one is the tree list of search. So let's just do a general search first of all. Okay. Now the search location for this one is not the people folder. I changed that. So you can see here, this is the root of the website. So it's searching through and it's giving me all of those first level items. What else could I search for? Let's search for John. And you'll see that I get one John item back. Okay. Now let's say for whatever reason I actually wanted to search across all of the sites that I've got in this field. So I can very easily change the location that we start at by navigating to another item, and I'll copy the ID of that item. So then I can come back, I can use that ID within that tree list with search field. So I'll put the ID in there, and now when I search for John, you'll see that I get 2 people back. One is in the people folder, okay, that's the one in the new website. One is in the London folder, that's in my legacy website. And lastly, I've got general link with search. So all of the other options, with the exception of this first one, they're the same as a general link field type that we're already used to. So we can click on the new search for a link option. Okay, and now we can search. I can't remember. Oh, this would be searching through the entire content tree. I haven't set it up with a source, so let me search for auto item. Nothing. Okay, let's search for John. Okay, and here are my John Smiths. So I may actually want to limit this search result down because I only want to find things within a particular site. But you can see there how I can use search now to find those items rather than if I had used, for example, insert link. The regular structure of that bucket is hidden. Okay, so I can't actually drill down to the items within the bucket, which is why, of course, we need the search option. Okay, let's have a look at inserting content into a rich text field. So there's my lorem item that I was looking for before. That'll do. We can use that. Let's come in here and have a look at the text field. So this is the standard rich text editor that's opening up at the moment. Okay, let's put some content in here. Okay, and I'd like to link this word here to Peter, for example. So I can click on the link button there. This dialog pops up. So again, first is I can use the tree to drill down to the content that I'd like to find. This content is in a bucket, so I know that I can't drill down to it. It's a new search tab instead. So let's search for John. Great, there's John. That's the wrong John. That's in the London folder. There's John in the people folder, so I can click on that. And now I've got a link to John. Okay, inserting media. Let's insert some media in here. So we can also search for media content. So again, we could drill down through the library. But instead, I'm thinking this is a nature article and I'm only interested in pictures that are about trees. Okay, I can use one of my search filters down here, and I can search by tag. Okay, because when I've been uploading my images, I've been tagging them. So now I can start typing a tag. Okay, autocomplete kicks in. Say, yep, that's the tag that I want, the tree tag. And then we execute that search. I've got 3 results of images to do with trees. Okay, and then I can select one of those and insert that into my article. Now, the media library is a good candidate for bucketing, especially if you've got great swathes of imagery and files and things like that. However, if you're going to use search within the media library, it becomes absolutely imperative that you tag your content appropriately. Okay, as you saw then, I could very easily search for trees, images that were to do with trees because they were tagged appropriately. Let me just close that out. So we come down and have a look. Now, yes, my media library structure here is very simple. I could have imported hundreds of images, but this is just a demo. So down here in the tagging section, okay, I've got, Sitecore has a tag repository. Sitecore 7 includes a tag repository, so you can tag things in a general way. So I've tagged this with my tree tag that I created. But just to highlight, you need to make sure that as people are uploading their images, they're tagging them appropriately. And they're putting appropriate alt text on them so you can actually search for them. Because if you don't, they simply won't be searchable. You know, you can search on the file name, but the file name isn't always descriptive of what you're going to get. You know, how often have you been dealing with imagery and it's named image 1, image 2, image 3? okay, searching for image is not really useful at all. It's imperative that you're tagging and adding a taxonomy, if you like, to your images as you upload them. Otherwise, the search UIs just aren't going to do any favors for you. Okay, so that was the search fields. Search infrastructure. So with Sitecore 7, well, with Sitecore, in fact, the thing that runs the search is not Sitecore. Sitecore, it delegates the search responsibilities to another component. Okay, in Sitecore 6.6, it was Lucene, or Lucene.net to be precise. In Sitecore 7, we have a choice. We can either use the traditional Lucene, or there's now out-of-the-box support for Solr, which is another very popular search engine. We've also got the capability to plug our own search technology in. So for example, we may have Microsoft Fast, and we want to use Microsoft Fast to provide the searching capabilities on the website, both on the front end of the website as well as the back end of the website. So we've got now that the search provider has been abstracted out, and we've got that provider model within Sitecore 7, we can use one of the out-of-the-box, Lucene or Solr, or we could create our own custom one if we wanted something like Fast, or if we've got some other kind of proprietary search technology that we want to use. Sitecore 7 now includes IFilter support. So IFilter is a Microsoft technology, and it's a standard for extracting text from different document formats. So for example, I want to extract the text from a Word document or a PowerPoint document or an Excel document or a PDF. Okay, these are the most common types of documents that I see used on websites and people wanting to upload into the media library. In Sitecore 6.6, we could make these file types searchable. So I could actually search based on the text within a document. But it did require some custom code. Okay, it wasn't complicated, and I only really had to write it once, and I always had it available. But if you're a client and you didn't remember that you were uploading a bunch of PDFs that you wanted searchable, and it's a late requirement that just jumped in, you may have had pushback from development saying, well, look, we need to do more development to get that support in there, so we're going to have to wait for that. So the good news with Sitecore 7 is the way in which we add that support is now much simpler. It's a matter of finding the appropriate IFilter and installing it on the server, and then you're done. Install the IFilter, re-index the content, and now you've got full text search across all of your document formats. There's also been some updates in data sources. So just very quickly, what is a data source? So a data source allows a component on a page to use a different piece of data than what the user requested. Okay, so let's say I have an article page. In the sidebar, I want to display a promotional ad. I might want to personalize that promotional ad as well using DMS. If I only use the content that was requested by the user, I've got no opportunity to personalize it, or I don't have that control over showing different content within that promotional component. I've always got to read the content that I'm displaying from the page that was requested by the user, which is not a good strategy. So Sitecore allows us, and this has been in Sitecore for many years, Sitecore allows us to specify a different piece of data within the content tree that should be used by that component. And then DMS extends that and says, well, I can swap out and change that data source based on a variety of criteria. Just a quick note to the other organizers, could you all please make sure you're on mute? Somebody just came on.
Muted.
Okay, so having a look at my example here, I've got my pages that are navigable that people can request up here in my content tree. And then I've got my component data, my widget data if you like, down here. So if you can see that small, and I apologize, my screenshot is quite small, these are related links, sets of related links that I'd like to show. If I have a look at the presentation, the pieces, the components that make up one of these pages, I can see I've got a related links component there that's highlighted. Okay, I haven't told that piece to use the page that has been requested as its data source, I've told it to use this other piece of data, okay, because that other piece of data contains the links. And again, because I'm using a data source, it's now personalizable and I can change which piece of content is being used by that component. So that's what a data source is. Okay, a data source is simply telling a component on a page to use another piece of content. In Sitecore 6.6, data sources were stored as paths. Now the problem with storing the data sources as paths was if that data source changed its name or changed where it was in the content tree, then your presentation component would break because it's trying to find a piece of content that sits at a particular location in the content tree and it's not there. You know, its name changed or it moved. Sitecore 7 has changed that. It now uses IDs to refer to the data source item. IDs are resilient because they don't change for the life of the piece of content. So the data source item could move in the tree, or somebody could rename it, and it's not going to affect my presentation component that's using that. So this means that the data sources are now resilient to content updates within the content tree, and there's less chance of my component breaking and not working. We've had search introduced in a number of new areas in Sitecore, and this is because we now have this idea of content pools and item buckets, and that's no different for data sources. So a data source, I may actually have my data source stored within a bucket, and in fact, architecturally, I find this quite a compelling technique. So previously in 6.6 and before, when I was adding a component to a page, I would often create a folder underneath the current item to store all of the data sources in that are specific to that page. From an architectural perspective, it's kind of, and a development perspective, that's kind of good because it's keeping your the content that's relevant for this page together with the page. But from a content authoring perspective, it was quite messy because you'd end up with a bunch of folders in the content tree that they didn't look like they needed to be there. With Sitecore 7, I can use item buckets to store all of my data sources in. So Sitecore, when I add a component to a page, Sitecore can take care of creating the data source and putting it into the bucket. And then because I've got an ID to that item rather than a path, it doesn't matter what happens within that bucket. I'll always be referring to that piece of content. So because I've got item buckets, I need to be able to search for content that I might want to link to existing content rather than creating new content. So of course we can now search for data source items. And we've got the query builder. The query builder is included in the select data source dialog to help us if we have a complex query. We can also paste the query if we created one from another search screen. So let's have a quick demo of data source updates and searching for data sources. Okay, now I'll know that on the articles I've set these up so I can add a new widget. So let's go and find an article to author. And in fact, I could actually use my lorem item right here, couldn't I? No, I don't want to use that one because it doesn't have any content in it yet. Let's come back here and let's search for, well, let's just search for anything. Okay, let's open up auto item 149. So I mentioned at the start, I auto-generated all of this content using, well, I was using a new tool in Sitecore 7, the FillDB tool. And I created a very modest amount of content in here. I only created 1,000 items. So let's open up one of those. I should say let's select one of those. Okay. And now when I'm using components and widgets and I want to change the presentation of a component, I'm going to use the page editor to do that. So I'll come over to the Publish tab and I'll open up the page editor, which opens up in a new tab. And just wait for that to load up. Okay. So here's my item. Very simple. Let's click Add New Component. Okay, and then I get the options of where I can add a new component on the page that are being configured. I'll click one of those and I'm going to select Related Links. So this is the widget that I've set up. Okay, so the very next thing that pops up, because this is what I like to call a widget. Okay, so what I define as a widget is a component that you can add through the page editor that also creates its own data source. So as you can see here, we can select an existing data source. Well, this isn't really relevant because my data sources in this instance are an item bucket, so I can't actually navigate down. I can, however, search for existing content, and you can see here I've already got an existing piece of content that I could use, another related links item, or I could create a new piece of content. So let's say we'll create a new piece of content. We'll call that new related links. The name is somewhat arbitrary. Okay, so that's my piece of content that's being created, the data source item. Now I can select onto that a number of links. So let's just say a couple of things there. We'll save that. And we'll close that. And then when we come back here and refresh the page, again, we can see in here, I've now got the selected items. Now, the main thing that we want to show here is the data source that we're using is resilient. Okay, so if I come back to my Sitecore interface and I go into my data sources folder, and I can search in here. And of course, search isn't working, is it? Okay, let's come a bit higher in the tree, and I'm looking for new related links. Okay, so here's that new related links item that we're using. Okay, and you can see here the selected items to show are industries, locations, and practices. Let's change the name of this. So as I mentioned in Sitecore 6.6, if you change the name of your data source, it would break any component that is using that as a data source. So I've gone and changed the name of my item there. When I come back to my page, I refresh that, you'll notice my related links are not broken, they're still working. Okay, so it doesn't look spectacular, but in Sitecore 6.6 that would have broken just then when I made that change. So the fact that it didn't break is very exciting for me as someone who maintains websites. And we've got a couple of general updates as well. So every Sitecore update brings bug fixes and performance improvements. Okay, and this is true of pretty much any release at all, any update that Sitecore puts out, you're going to get additional performance and bug fixes. One thing that hasn't been spoken about too much by the community, but one thing that I've personally found, better cross-browser support. So using Chrome with Sitecore 6.6, there were some little nuances here and there. Some funny behaviors, and I have found that with Sitecore 7 they seem to be less. So conclusion, and this is the big question that everyone's asking, should I update to Sitecore 7? And I would say absolutely yes. Sitecore 7 is a more stable platform. It has better performance, especially when it comes to search and indexing. Brand new modules that Sitecore are going to put out typically will focus on the most current version of Sitecore. So if Sitecore tomorrow released a brand new module for integration with the newest, hottest social network, for example, chances are that's going to be first available for Sitecore 7 and then possibly will be back-ported. Even updates to existing modules. So for example, Web Forms for Marketers, which is quite a popular module, the latest version of that, 2.3, is only available for Sitecore 6.6 and 7. So you can imagine if Sitecore made an update to another module, chances are that it may be for Sitecore 7 only. In fact, I believe when the design importer module was released, that was during the 6.6 timeframe, and it was only available for Sitecore 6.6. So if you were on 6.5 or before, you couldn't use that module. You had to update first. So again, it pays to keep up to date when you're using Sitecore, so you can make use of this new stuff. Now, yes, we've got item buckets. They're kind of, item buckets and searches, the biggest things in Sitecore 7, but you don't have to use them either, okay? If this idea of not having structure scares you, you can still update to Sitecore 7 and get the benefits of, more stable platform and faster indexing, and completely ignore item buckets. You don't need to use them. And in fact, I would probably almost suggest that if you have a current site, you would have to really do some thorough analysis to work out if you'd want to take that, make that investment in changing your architecture to make use of the item bucket. I would say in most cases, unless you're suffering from real pain with your current site, you probably just want to leave it alone and continue to work. Okay, the next site that you build, then you can start utilizing item buckets and take full use of all of the features of Sitecore 7. And with that, I'll say thank you for your time, and I'll hand it back to Anirban to just close us off.
Unmuted.
Thanks, Alistair. We have a lot of questions, but since we are running out of time, we'll be able to take a few of them. So I'll just read out the first question to you, Alistair.
Yeah.
Can item buckets be used in the media library?
Yes, you can. So I mentioned, whilst I was showing the media library, I mentioned that the media library is actually a good candidate for item buckets. So I can create a folder within the media library. I can say that that's a bucket. Images are bucketable, and so yes, I definitely can use item buckets in the media library. As I mentioned, word of warning, you have to ensure that your tagging is right if you're going to use search with the media library. You've got to make sure that you're applying tags or some kind of taxonomy so you can easily find the content that you're after.
Okay, Alistair, the next question is, you mentioned that it will be vital to tag things properly for search to work. What are the options when users inevitably do not follow the best practices for tagging?
So if users don't tag, so the tagging comment was specifically for the media library. So if users upload images and they don't tag them, you can still find them through a general search. And in fact, if you were using the tags fields that I showed, you could craft a query that found all items without a tag and then progressively go through one by one and tag them. Unless you're willing to page through hundreds of results, depending on how many images you have, I just can't see any other good way of utilizing the power of that when you're in, for example, inserting imagery into a rich text field. Okay, so if you don't tag, yes, you still can bring up all of the search results and you can page through them, all of the media library items. I just think it's going to be very inefficient. So you're not left out in the dark. You still can use your content. You still can make it work, but it's not going to be efficient on the part of the content author if that's the way that you'll be doing it.
Alistair, I'll take the another last question. We'll get back to the rest via email. Any idea of Sitecore's timeline for a 7.1 release? Our developers are hesitant to upgrade before a 0.1 update.
Well, the very first update has already been made. That was, my weeks are blurring together. I can't remember if that was early this week or late last week. So Sitecore 7 Update 1 is already available. Sitecore's release naming and numbering does not follow a strict 7, 7.1, 7.2. So we're currently at 7.0 Update 1. Yeah, I can understand the hesitation. In fact, at eDynamic, we just started a project on Sitecore 7, and we're currently evaluating whether we're going to be updating to 7.7 Update 1 immediately. Given that Sitecore 7 is very new, I would suggest that any updates are definitely taken, just because it's a new platform, new things are being tried out, and every release is going to bring more stability with it. The updates are pretty straightforward. As long as you've got your solution structured the right way, the updates are pretty straightforward and pretty painless.
All right. There are a few more questions, but we'll have to get back to them after the webinar via email. At this note, we'll have to end the webinar. I would like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. We hope you found it informative. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within the next 3 business days. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@edynamic.net for any questions you might have. Thank you once again. Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you.
The organizer has ended this session, and this call